Chapter 2, The Fall. Saturday morning, festival day. October had painted Westbrooke Falls in its finest colors, and the morning of the Harvest Festival dawned crisp and clear, with the kind of golden light that made everything look like a postcard. Sami arrived at the school at 7 a.m. to find the parking lot already buzzing with activity, parents unloading supplies, children running around with barely contained excitement, and the sweet smell of apple cider drifting from the Sweetgrass Cafe truck that Sarah Chen had positioned near the main entrance. She felt a flutter of nervous energy that had nothing to do with festival logistics and everything to do with the man she knew would be arriving soon to help set up their entrance display. Miss Harper. Zahara's voice cut through the morning bustle, and Sami turned to see the 8-year-old running toward her, a drawing clutched in her small hands. "I made something special for the festival." "Let me see, sweetheart." Sami crouched down as Zahara proudly displayed her latest artwork, a watercolor painting of the school entrance surrounded by happy pumpkins and dancing leaves, with 2 figures arranging decorations together. Even in a child's simplified style, there was no mistaking the tall man and the woman working side by side. "It's you and Daddy making everything beautiful," Zahara explained, her dark eyes bright with pride. "I wanted to capture the moment before it changes." Before it changes. Sami studied the painting more carefully, struck by the 8-year-old's intuitive understanding of transition and impermanence. "Moments like this don't last forever," Zahara said with the matter-of-fact wisdom that sometimes emerged from children. "But if you paint them, you can keep them safe." Before Sami could respond, Damon's voice carried across the parking lot. "There's my favorite artist." Sami looked up to see him approaching, wearing jeans that fit just right and a burgundy sweater that brought out the warm tones in his brown skin. His smile was directed at his daughter, but his eyes found Sami's and held them with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Daddy, look what I made." Zahara thrust the painting toward her father, bouncing on her toes with excitement. Damon took the artwork with the reverence he always showed his daughter's creations, but Sami saw the moment he recognized the figures in the painting. His gaze flicked to her, something warm and wondering in his expression. "It's beautiful, baby girl. Just like the real thing." His voice was steady, but there was an undertone that made Sami's cheeks warm. "Should we go make your painting come to life?" The morning flew by in a blur of organized chaos. Sami and Damon worked together with the easy rhythm they discovered during their planning sessions, positioning hay bales and arranging pumpkins while other volunteers transformed the school grounds into an autumn wonderland. They developed a shorthand of glances and gestures, anticipated each other's needs, shared inside jokes with the families who stopped to admire their progress. "You two make quite a team," commented Mrs. Washington, Keisha's mother-in-law, as she helped position a scarecrow near their display. "Reminds me of me and Mr. Washington when we were young and courting." "Oh, we're not," Sami started, but Damon's hand on her lower back as he reached around her to adjust a cornstalk made the words disappear. "We work well together," he said simply, and something in his tone made Mrs. Washington smile knowingly. "I can see that, honey. I surely can." By 10 o'clock, families were beginning to arrive for the festival's official start, and their entrance display was everything Sami had envisioned and more. The hay bales created perfect tiers for the pumpkins and gourds, the cornstalks added dramatic height, and the string lights Damon had woven throughout the arrangement would make everything magical when evening fell. "It's perfect," Sami breathed, standing back to admire their work. "It really is." But when she looked over, Damon was watching her instead of the display, his expression soft and appreciative in a way that made her feel beautiful despite her work clothes and the hay in her hair. "Daddy, Miss Harper, come look." Zahara called from where she'd been helping other children at the face painting station. Mrs. Chen painted a butterfly on my cheek. They walked over to admire Sarah Chen's handiwork, and Sami felt the rightness of it, the three of them moving together through the festival crowd, Zahara's hand slipping naturally into hers, Damon's presence at her side solid and reassuring. "You know," Sarah said with a meaningful look as she cleaned her brushes, "James and I have been talking about how nice it is to see new families forming in Westbrooke Falls. The community is stronger when people find where they belong." Sami felt a flutter of panic at the word families. But before she could overthink it, Damon's fingers brushed hers, grounding her in the present moment. "We should check on the other stations," she said, needing movement to settle her nerves. "Make sure everything's running smoothly." They spent the next hour making rounds together, Damon carrying supplies, Sami troubleshooting logistics, both of them naturally including Zahara in their conversations and decisions. It felt so easy, so right, that Sami almost forgot to be scared. Almost. Saturday afternoon, the garden. By noon, the festival was in full swing, with families moving between activity stations, children's laughter echoing across the school grounds, and the volunteer coordinators rotating through their lunch breaks. Sami had been going nonstop since dawn, and when Keisha Washington appeared at her elbow with a knowing smile, she gratefully accepted the suggestion to take a break. "Go eat something," Keisha insisted. "Damon's got the entrance covered and everything else is running like clockwork. You've earned a few minutes to breathe." Sami found herself walking toward the school garden, her favorite quiet spot on campus with a plate of food she wasn't particularly hungry for. The garden was tucked behind the building, surrounded by a low fence and filled with the remnants of the fall harvest the children had tended all semester. Pumpkin vines sprawled between raised beds, late-blooming flowers added splashes of color, and a wooden bench sat under the old oak tree that had probably watched over this spot for decades. She'd been sitting there for maybe 5 minutes, picking at Sarah Chen's excellent pulled pork and trying to process the morning's intensity when footsteps crunched on the fallen leaves behind her. "Hiding out." Damon's voice was warm with understanding as he settled onto the bench beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body in the crisp air. "Taking a moment," she corrected, but she was smiling. "It's been a good morning." "It has been." He turned to face her more fully, and something in his expression made her pulse skip. "Sami, I need to tell you something." "What?" "This morning, working with you, seeing you with Zahara and the other families, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like we were exactly where we're supposed to be." The honesty in his voice made her chest tight. "Damon." "I know you're scared," he continued gently. "I know you have good reasons to be careful with your heart. But I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't careful or safe or practical. It's real. And it's growing every day, and I can't pretend anymore that it's just about festival planning or parent-teacher cooperation." Sami set down her barely touched plate, her hands suddenly unsteady. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm falling for you, Samone Harper. Hard and fast and completely against my better judgment." His voice was low, intense, full of a vulnerability that took her breath away. "And I hope that maybe you're falling too." The words hung between them in the autumn air, surrounded by the distant sounds of children playing and the rustle of leaves overhead. Sami felt all her carefully constructed defenses trembling, felt the walls she'd built since Atlanta cracking under the weight of his honesty. "I am," she whispered, the admission torn from somewhere deep in her chest. "I'm terrified, but I am." "Tell me why you're terrified." She looked at him sitting there in the dappled light, patient and steady and willing to hear her fears, and something inside her broke open. "Because the last time I trusted someone with my heart, he told me I was too safe, too predictable, too boring for someone who wanted to feel alive. The words spilled out in a rush, 2 years of pain and self-doubt, finally finding voice. He cheated on me with my best friend because she was exciting and challenging and everything I apparently wasn't, and when I found them together, he said he couldn't marry someone just because they made sense on paper. Damon's face darkened with anger, not at her, but for her. He was an idiot. Was he, though? Maybe I am too safe, too... Stop. Damon's hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. There is nothing boring about a woman who creates magic in a classroom every day. There is nothing predictable about someone who can take a scared, shy little girl and help her find her confidence. There is nothing safe about the way you make me feel like I could be enough for someone again. Damon. Your stability isn't a flaw, Sami. It's a gift. Your nurturing nature isn't boring, it's beautiful. The way you care for people, the way you create safe spaces for them to grow and thrive, that's not something to be ashamed of, that's something precious. Tears spilled down her cheeks at the fierce conviction in his voice. How can you be so sure? Because I've been watching you for months. I've seen how you light up when you talk about your students. I've watched you transform my daughter from a scared little girl into a confident artist. I've felt the way you make me want to be better, stronger, more present. His thumbs brushed away her tears. You don't make me feel alive in spite of your stability. You make me feel alive because of it. You make me feel like I could build something lasting and beautiful again. I'm scared of hurting Zahara, she whispered. If this doesn't work out, if I become important to her, and then we don't let that happen. Damon's voice was steady, certain. We're adults, Sami. We get to choose how this goes. We get to decide to fight for it, to communicate, to work through problems instead of running away from them. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. I choose you, Samone Harper. I choose your beautiful, nurturing heart and your incredible mind and the way you make everything around you better. I choose this feeling, this connection, this possibility. The question is, do you choose it too? Looking into his warm brown eyes, feeling the solid strength of his presence, Sami realized that for the first time in 2 years, she wasn't thinking about all the ways love could go wrong. She was thinking about all the ways it could go right. I choose it, she breathed. I choose you. The kiss was inevitable, natural as breathing, as necessary as the autumn air around them. His lips were warm and sure against hers, tasting like coffee and possibility. And when she kissed him back, she felt something tight and fearful in her chest finally begin to unfurl. This wasn't the desperate passion of people trying to prove something to themselves. This was the kiss of two people who had found something precious and were choosing to protect it, nurture it, let it grow into something beautiful. When they broke apart, both breathless and glowing, Damon pressed his forehead to hers again. I've been wanting to do that since you fell off that ladder, he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. Just since the ladder, she teased, feeling lighter than she had in years. Well, maybe since you crouched down to talk to Zahara that first morning, and I realized you saw her the same way I do as something miraculous. She is miraculous, you both are. They sat there in the school garden, surrounded by pumpkins and late-blooming flowers, holding each other and savoring the moment when everything changed. In the distance, the sounds of the festival continued. Children laughing, families enjoying the perfect fall day, a community coming together to celebrate the harvest. And for the first time since Atlanta, Sami allowed herself to believe that maybe she was exactly where she belonged. Saturday evening, the unraveling. The festival had been a resounding success. As the sun set over Westbrooke Falls, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that rivaled the autumn foliage, families began to pack up their blankets and gather their children. The entrance display glowed in the string lights exactly as Sami had envisioned, and everywhere she looked, she saw tired but happy faces, parents who'd enjoyed a perfect community day, children clutching their prizes and painted faces, teenagers who'd earned community service hours while actually having fun. Sami stood near the cleanup station, checking items off her final to-do list, when she felt warm hands settle on her shoulders. "You did it," Damon said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "You created something beautiful." She leaned back against his chest, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction and the luxury of his solid presence. "We did it. I couldn't have managed the entrance without you." "I wasn't just talking about the festival." The warmth in his voice made her turn in his arms, and she saw the way he was looking at her like she was something precious, something worth cherishing. The kiss in the garden felt like a lifetime ago, and like 5 minutes ago all at once. "Daddy." "Miss Harper." Zahara's voice broke into their moment, and they stepped apart as she ran toward them, her face still painted with Sarah Chen's butterfly, her hands full of the artwork she'd created at various stations throughout the day. "Look what I made," she said, thrusting a construction paper turkey toward them. "It's for our Thanksgiving table. Mrs. Rodriguez showed us how to make the feathers say what we're thankful for." Sami looked at the turkey, reading the crayon words written on each colorful feather. "Daddy, art, my school, friends, Miss Harper." "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said, her throat tight with emotion at seeing her name among the things Zahara was grateful for. "I put you on there because you make everything better," Zahara explained matter-of-factly. "Before you came to our school, I was sad a lot. But you helped me remember that being different is good, and that it's okay to be quiet sometimes, and that making art is like praying." Damon's arm slipped around Sami's waist, pulling her closer. "Miss Harper is pretty special, isn't she?" "The most special," Zahara agreed. Then, with the innocent directness that only children possessed, she looked up at both of them and asked, "Are you going to marry Miss Harper, Daddy?" The question hit Sami like a physical blow. The warmth and rightness of the moment shattered, replaced by a cold rush of panic that made her step away from Damon's embrace. "Zahara, sweetheart," Damon started, but his daughter was just getting started. "Because I think you should. She could live in our house, and we could be a real family, and I could call her Mama Sami like Jessica calls her stepmom, Mama Linda, and we could have family art time every night, and she could help me with my homework, and we could all go to church together on Sundays." With each innocent word, Sami felt herself pulling further away, her chest growing tighter, her breathing more shallow. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of Zahara getting attached, building expectations, planning a future that might not exist. "Baby girl," Damon said gently, "Miss Harper and I are just friends who worked on the festival together." "But you like each other," Zahara protested, looking between them with 8-year-old certainty. "I can tell. You smile different when you look at her, Daddy. And she gets happy sparkles in her eyes when you talk to her. Just like in the movies when people are in love." "Zahara." Sami's voice came out sharper than she intended, and she saw both father and daughter flinch. "You shouldn't. We can't just. This is exactly why teachers and parents need to maintain professional boundaries." The words sounded cold and formal even to her own ears, but she couldn't stop them. All her fears were crashing over her like a wave fears about moving too fast, about hurting this precious child, about being someone's safe choice until something better came along. "I don't understand," Zahara said, her voice small and confused. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, sweetheart, you didn't." but Sami was already gathering her clipboard and backing away from them both. I need to finish the cleanup. There's so much still to do. Sami. Damon's voice carried a warning, a plea. Don't do this. Do what? Maintain appropriate boundaries? Remember that I'm Zahara's teacher first and foremost. She knew she was being unfair, knew she was letting fear drive her words, but she couldn't seem to stop. Today was wonderful, but it was also confusing, and I think we all got caught up in the moment. This isn't about the moment, Damon said quietly, his eyes never leaving her face. This is about you getting scared and running away. I'm not running away, I'm being responsible. You're being terrified. The accuracy of his observation made her defensive. Maybe I have good reason to be terrified. Maybe some people aren't meant for the kind of life your daughter is imagining. What is that supposed to mean? Sami looked at Zahara, who was watching their exchange with growing distress, her turkey clutched against her chest like a shield, and felt her heart break for the pain she was about to cause. It means that I care about both of you too much to let this go somewhere that could hurt her. The words felt like they were being torn from her chest. Zahara has already lost one important woman in her life. She doesn't need to get attached to someone who might not be what she needs. That's not your decision to make, Damon said firmly, and it's not fair to either of us. Neither is letting an 8-year-old plan our wedding because we shared a few nice moments at a school festival. The moment the words left her mouth, Sami regretted them. Zahara's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks and ruining Sarah Chen's butterfly face paint. I'm sorry, Zahara whispered. I didn't mean to make you mad. I thought maybe we could be happy together. Oh, sweetheart. Sami knelt down, reaching for the little girl, but Zahara stepped back into her father's protective embrace. I think, Damon said, his voice carefully controlled, that you've said enough for tonight. The coldness in his tone was like a slap. Sami stood slowly, clutching her clipboard against her chest like armor. I should go. There's still cleanup to coordinate, and I need to make sure all the volunteers. Sami. Damon's voice stopped her. When you're done being scared, when you're ready to stop pushing away the best thing that's happened to any of us in years, you know where to find us. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and walked away from the best thing that had happened to her in years, leaving behind a heartbroken 8-year-old and the man who had made her believe in love again. As she threw herself into cleanup coordination, directing volunteers and packing supplies with mechanical efficiency, Sami tried to convince herself she'd done the right thing. Zahara was too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships. Damon was too recently divorced to be thinking clearly about what he wanted. She was too damaged from Atlanta to trust her own judgment about love. But as the string lights came down from their entrance display, as the hay bales were loaded back onto trucks and the pumpkins distributed to families, Sami couldn't shake the image of Zahara's face when she'd realized that her innocent dreams of a happy family had somehow made the adults angry. By the time the last volunteer had left and the school grounds were restored to their normal Saturday evening quiet, Sami sat alone in her empty classroom, surrounded by the drawings and crafts from the festival, and finally allowed herself to cry. She'd protected herself, protected Zahara, protected them all from the possibility of future heartbreak. So why did it feel like she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life?